Right. So, hey guys, welcome to the second episode of Break the Bubble today. Thank you for joining. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
so what you guys have been up to in the last month? Like, what you guys have been doing?
Okay. I think I would start with a little bit of an introduction. My name is Toby. I'm a mobile developer. I'm based in Lagos, Nigeria. And so in the last 1 month, I would say I've been busy with some side projects, mostly, tailored towards learning more, about Bubble and also some other notebook tools. And also been doing some, just general learning, that has been most of what I've been doing. But yeah, exciting about some stuff that I've got planned later to happen this month. So that's from my end.
Yeah, for me, it's been pretty interesting. My name is Felicia, and I'm also a Bubble developer. Manage and build the application at good cost. For me, the last 4 months actually, has been interesting. I've been, just picking up one or two things in Bubble, just like exploring things. Trying out new things. I tried building like a tiny game, recently in Bubble, but like it didn't go so well. Ran into some challenges, so I just left it. And then, for work too, it's been interesting. Picking up new features and exploring things that like, we've previously not done. One interesting challenge, is around, working with PDFs, as Bubble developers, that working with PDFs, can be quite interesting a bit. I've been doing some work around that, trying to ensure that we give needed features to our users. But yeah, that's how it's been for me.
So let's get to know you guys. Your introductions. So, would like to know where like you're born, you come from, and when you found Bubble, how you got started with it, what you guys doing before, and like how it has been the journey, like finding Bubble and till today.
Okay, so discovered the Bubble in late 2020. I was in the middle of a career transition at the time. I wanted to switch from marketing to something, more interesting for me. And at that time, my first consideration was product design. And I was enrolled in a boot camp that I had just completed, or I was at the, completion stage. And then, I found Bubble through an Instagram ad at that time, and then decided to look more into it. And I saw that it was quite good in terms of what I had, an idea that I was working on at the time. And then I used about 2 months to learn the intricacies of how it works. And then, I used that to build my first project. And, thereafter, I started to learn more about it. And, in 2021, I decided to focus on it as a career, as a full-time career. And, ever since then, I've been, working on different kinds of projects in different industries with different clients. I've taught a bunch of people how to use it. So it's been, nothing less than an exciting journey since then. But yeah, it's, a transition. There's always a transition. So I feel that, yeah, I may be doing Bubble right now. For the last almost 4 years, I've been learning Bubble, but at some point, I feel like, I would have to transition to something else. So this is just the phase I'm in right now, but it's been an exciting journey, so far.
Yeah, for me, I'm a Nigerian, born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. I've spent most of my life here in Lagos, and I'm still spending this phase of my life in Lagos. But it's been an exciting one. Lagos is, the largest city and, most exposed city in Nigeria. So it's always interesting to be like at a place where everything is happening. And, so because of being in Lagos and all of that, I got into career, quite early. I started out, as a developer. I started writing code around the age of 12, building calculators and, and a few things like that. And I eventually graduated into, proper web development, building applications and all of that. Even before I graduated, from high school, myself and a group of friends, built a product that we now launched in the school that was used for a period of time. And so getting into university, I quickly found like the tech circle And then I was building a couple of things then, but along the way, I transitioned into product management because I wanted to learn, the right way to build out. I wanted to learn the way to build things that mattered and not just, keep on building anything, building side projects and all of that. So when I got into product management and I learned the right way to build products and all of that, I then became interested in building my own products again. But at this time, I was faced, with picking up coding again, because when I got into product management, I left coding, for some time. And so I didn't want to go back into it. And so I was just looking for a way to build out my ideas, without writing code. I was looking for a way to interpret all of the PRDs that I was writing, all of the research I was doing. I was looking for a way to get it out in the market, very fast. And so it was then I began to search, looking around, how can I build something without coding? And then I came across, the world of no code. I found Bubble, I found Softar, Airtable. I got about, a number of tools then. And so I decided to spend, a little bit of time with each and every one of them. But then sometime around, late 2021, thereabout, I then decided to, sit and focus on Bubble. And it's been exciting since then. It's been exciting since then. And since then, I've gone on to work with, clients from all around the world, and even support businesses, here in Nigeria where I reside. And I've been privileged, to also have the Bubble community in some way or the other by organizing meetups, events, and just helping people generally. So for me, it's been an interesting journey.
How did you found like how did you like started like with no code? Like how did you found it? Like did you look for it or like I mean
Yeah. I was looking for, for applications that I could build on. And so like when I Googled, I came across articles around no-code tools. I found a couple of them, Bubble, Softar. I just signed up and I began to try each and every one of them. Yeah.
and like which year you started? Like when like you started
Sorry?
when did you kind of shifted full time to Bubble?
When did I shift full time to Bubble? I think I shifted sometime in, early 2022, I feel like Q2 in 2022. I was actually, working, at a product job at that time. And yeah, I was working, a product job at that time. So in the day, I'll go to work, as a product manager, do all of the things there. And then when I'm back home, I'm trying to grind the Bubble, learn Bubble and all of that. But after, I completed a series of builds then on Bubble, I thought I wanted to go full time into it. And so I quit, the product job I was doing there, and then I started Bubble full time, even if I did not have a job then. But I just decided to, go for it. So it was like Q2 2022. Q2 2022 was then.
How long it took from you for you to like starting to learn Bubble and then get your first job?
It took me like 5 months. It took me like 5 months. It took me like 5 months. Although I usually tell people, to space out time for learning and not just rush into no code, and think like, you get a job in like 1 or 2 months. So for me, I wasn't even actively looking for a job then. Usually I give myself a year of learning. But I think in my fifth month, I saw, a job on one of the Slack, communities, and I sent a DM and I got the gig. So 5 months.
Toby, how long it took for you to like go from learning to start working?
I would say about 6 months, because I just before I got my first job, I went through the Dev Canvas bootcamp. I don't know if you know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went through the program, and just as I've completed it, I received a direct message from someone on LinkedIn about an application she was working on, and she was stuck somewhere and she needed, help to walk through the rest of it. So that was how I got my first job. That was around late 2021, thereabouts. Yeah, so it took some time, from when I decided to focus Bubble full time and then going through that learning period where I just was learning as much as I could before I started to take jobs. So about 6 months, thereabouts.
For me, same like around 6-7 months, and then got a DM on Twitter for like a project, and then yeah, started building it. So
Okay.
That's been like it takes so less time like in bubble. Like in coding, I think it's very hard to like get your first job in 6 months. Like how much can you learn? Right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So yeah, let's talk about like the challenges kind of US face. Like I mean, starting up right now, like what are the like common challenges like someone would face or faces like I mean in Nigeria itself, like specific to Nigeria and like bubble, like what were the kind of challenges that you found and you faced in the like last few years working with it, starting with bubble, and how did you like overcome it, Toby?
Okay. So in terms of challenges, I would say that challenges I faced at that time, some of them have been sort of solved because around that time there weren't many communities or resources, to help me. So it was mostly just like, the Wild Wild West, and there were just like very few. I wouldn't say very few because you had like tons of YouTube videos talking about how to do different things, but there were not a lot compared to what we have right now. So I would say the first challenge was knowledge, right? Like knowing what I needed to learn and then knowing where to get that knowledge. But like I said before, that problem is partially solved now because you have like a lot more content creators, you have a lot more communities right now than around 2020, 2021 when I started. Another problem I had or challenge I had was with regards to getting support in terms of mentorship or like just having that system where if I faced the problem, I knew where to go to get help, which piggybacks on my first point of having like a community. Because right now we have like a community for bubblers in Nigeria and Africa. That didn't exist before. And at that time, if I had an issue somewhere, I would have needed to have gone to the bubble forum to get answers or look for like, one of the few communities I was part of too. And I wouldn't maybe get an answer that way, maybe unless I had like a friend or two who were very good, who were experienced bubblers and would help me. But now, that problem doesn't exist as much as before. Another issue I had was, making that transition from a non-technical background to a technical one. Because I'd never built an application prior to that time. So this was all new to me. So making that switch in my head and knowing, okay, how do I make this transition as smooth as possible? It was something I had to figure out myself. But I think now it's still a problem for a lot of people who have no technical background, wanting to build an app. But I think that is not pronounced as it was years ago. So that's also another plus we have. I mean, those are the three things I can think of right now. But if I think of anyone, just after Felicia is done, I will add those as well.
Yeah, for me, I think the challenge, one general challenge, before I talk about Nigeria specific challenges, but one general challenge, that I had, and I think I've heard a couple of people, who have come after me also say, is around the learning curve, for Bubble. I mean, it shouldn't be a challenge, but it's quite some challenge. A lot of people, when they get on, when they hear about Bubble, they're usually hearing about how no code is much easier, compared to code, which realistically, is true, to some extent, that no code is relatively easier code, but everything about no code is not, simple. As you grow, you get to more intricate path. So the learning curve, was one thing I faced. It was a bit unsettling as I tried to go up the ladder. When I went past the very, very basic stage, like say building, it to do, or when it came to tying different parts of an app together, that proved, to be a little bit of a challenge. But the way I got through that and the way I think anyone would get through that is just by sticking your head and just continue to stick your head into it. It's been tenacious, being dogged about learning. When you start Bubble, there's usually that excitement. Everything is going very easy and very simple. And like the curve is, going upward. Then you get to a point that, it just looks like if you're stuck. But then, the key to get past that phase is just to just continue learning. So that was one issue. Another issue, I think, which is general, to a number of people, but it's context, specific, is around the timing. Toby spoke a bit about like the transitioning, right? For me, then, I was working an active product job, like literally going to office from Monday to Friday, right? Leaving the house like 6 a.m. and not coming back to like 7 p.m., in the evening. And I'm tired and all of that. But then, so that's supposed to be a challenge if you're looking to like, if you're working, on an active role now, or like you're a student and then you're trying to transition into bubble. Planning around that time, can be a challenge, or like finding the time to fit with bubble, because to know bubble, you must fit with it. So finding that time to fit with bubble, appeared to be a challenge then. But then I tried, to creatively solve around it. And so I started spending more of my weekends, for bubble, because sometimes when I come back, during a weekday, I'm very tired and my brain is not even working as optimal, as it should be. And so it's difficult even grasping basic concepts. And so I decided to, spend, more of my weekend, doing, learning bubble and all of that. So I think the challenge there being finding the time to learn bubble, and the solution being, creatively work around, your situation. Two other things that I think are specific challenges. I think number one would be internet. Nigeria is not very famous for having, very great internet connection, or even very, very affordable internet subscriptions. And so for a number of people that I've met, when they hear that Bubble does not have like a desktop application where you can build offline, like it comes as a surprise. Like, do you mean I have to put on my data and I'm building for hours? Like, I think that's like, a problem that a number of, people may face in Nigeria, but I don't believe that, everyone, would face that, will face that challenge. But again, the key is just creatively working around it. So for me, in my very, very early days, I faced that challenge at some point. And the way I creatively solved around it, was by getting a kind of internet subscription that we call the midnight plan. Telco companies here in Nigeria would usually offer much cheaper internet subscriptions in the midnight between 12 to 5. And so you can imagine getting, internet for like 10 times less than the price. And so what I'll do is, when I come back from the office, sometimes I go to bed early so I can wake up by 12. And so between 12 to 5, I have a lot of internet, to use. And so I learn at times like that. So internet, I think it is something that a number of Nigerians, and then also electricity. Yeah, Nigeria is also very famous for like 24 hours electricity or very stable power supply. And so for people that are living in much more remote areas, or even like, well-exposed areas, they may face the challenge of, we don't have like large supply and stuff like that. I faced that also, and my way of creatively solving around it was also keeping all of my ad jobs to like the midnight, because yeah, for where I stayed around, we usually had more stable lights in the middle of the night, which is quite strange. Imagine in the day, there's no lights, but then from 12 to 5, like no one's touching the lights. So that was another way, I solved around. So there's some challenges I faced, and the way I creatively solved around it to break forth. Yeah.
Like these problems, how are they like today? I mean, it's still solving, or like, I mean, it's still same. Like, I mean, people face it like even now today.
I think so. I think so. But I don't think it is about the time. I don't think it's about like then versus now. I think it's about the stages of the lives of people, right? I'm at a point now where, those challenges, I can fix them. I mean, if like there is no light, I can arrange for my own power supply, with generators, stuff like that. And I can purchase like much more internet subscription, or like much more stable networks, right? I can get a Starlink if I want, and I won't, be faced with dealing with bad internet or things like that. So I don't think everyone, is facing that problem, or everyone is facing the problem now. I think some people may still be at stages of life where they have to deal with things like this. But I mean, if they stick on with bubble before long, they should be out of that phase.
So did you guys found like some kind of community support? Like, is there like, I mean, let's say someone's facing these issues, so Are there like, I mean, some kind of government supported or like private supported places which kind of offer, I mean, like electricity or internet, like for people to come and work, like kind of libraries like that?
Yes, in some way, there are things like that. Not really in like community or residential areas, but for example, on campuses, like in Nigeria universities, there's usually, free internet, like free Wi-Fi that students, can leverage, and usually there's power supply. So one common thing when I was, on campus was that, in the afternoons, like you just see a lot of students, in certain classrooms plugging their laptops and like they're working, whether like, whether they're Bubble developers or not, you just find people coming around to campus to, work around those challenges. So that's like, a support that there is, but that's really the only one I know about. Toby, do you want to chime in there?
Yeah, absolutely. You've really mentioned some cogent points that people generally face with the internet and electricity. Yeah. To add to what you've said, I think one other challenge that I faced at the beginning, and I think people will still face right now, would be finding clients because being someone who was just starting out, then it was kind of difficult to have like a solid body of work would convince anybody to work with me. I mean, at that time, it was just the EDF bootcamp that I had gone through, and I think a personal project that I built. So I didn't have a lot of projects to use as a way to convince our clients to work with me. And so it took a lot to get to that point where I am now, where I have a larger portfolio of projects, and that can allow me to more easily get jobs. So that was another one. Then another issue that I had then was because of my limited knowledge with Bubble. There were not a lot of things I knew how to do. I had a very limited understanding of how to solve certain problems or build certain features. And, it took a while, again, this is a timing thing. It took a while to gradually learn different things. For example, maybe responsiveness, just responsiveness as an example. That was something that took me a lot to figure out. In Bubble, how do you build a responsive application that works on different screens? Or something like creating a scalable database structure, or even building certain features I had not built before. So these are things that one can't solve immediately for. You have to take some time to keep learning. As Felicia mentioned before, like just put your head down there and just keep learning. So these are like time-related, issues or challenges that anyone would face, and would be solved as they keep learning over time.
So if you guys had to start today, like, I mean, from all the learnings and from all the challenges, like if you knew all this and then you have to start again today, so how would you start? Like anybody new who finds Bubble, let's say today, and wants to start running and kind of gives themselves, say, around, say, 3 months, like 100 days. So if you had like from now 100 days ahead, how would you start and kind of in that time work and learn in a way that you would find yourself work and starting? So how would you do this today?
Well, in my case, I think I wouldn't do anything much different from what I did, in my journey. I think I would, if I had 3 months to learn Bubble, I would of course start with maybe some free resources, like the bootcamp I mentioned before, or just going through YouTube. And then I would also focus on building personal projects, side projects. I would take on personal challenges to build different things, small applications, of course. Like a marketplace app here, a calculator app here, to-do app there, so on and so forth, to just grasp like the basics, and then probably go through some challenges involving other people. I could work with other developers to build something, maybe a designer on the team as well. After going through that whole phase of learning as much as I can, then I would start to see how I can start to take on some volunteer projects, without getting paid now, and just, working with some agencies or some established developers to just give me some work to do, some small tasks to do on their projects. And then that way I can, keep also building more experience. Then probably after like a 5 to 6 months period of doing all of that, then I can start to like say, oh, I'm ready to work on client projects on my own. And then, I can start to, do a lot of social media visibility so that clients can know that I'm available to work. I can post on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and then, I can also have a portfolio of projects I can show them at that point to say, I'm ready and I can do your work. And then, of course, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be an expert at that point. It means that I just have enough knowledge to be able to work on those projects. And, I may run into issues at that point, and that's where all the different communities that one has, been part of come in handy, whereby they can come to those communities and say, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can someone show me how to do this? And there will definitely be someone there who can help. And, on and on like that. Within a period of a year or so, one can then become like, an intermediate, from junior to intermediate, bubble developer. So that would be how I think, I would recommend one to take that journey between a period of 3 months to 6 months to 1 year.
So where would you start? Like someone's coming, like what's the first step? Like how would you like take in?
The first step, I would say they should start with getting into YouTube. YouTube would be a first step for me, like just learning generally about no code, the idea of no code, what it is, and then maybe learning the different tools, in the no code space, and then choosing a particular tool, in this case, Bubble, to learn, and then just learning the basic stuff, right? Like how do you create a Bubble account? How do you understand the Bubble interface? Creating a Bubble account for yourself, and then after getting those familiar, those basic things sorted, then they can sign up with the eardev bootcamp and then go through the program because it's free. And, there are different challenges they can take on, at that point. So that would be kind of like how they can start.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, captured, a good chunk of what I had in mind. But just to bring it in from a little bit of a different perspective. For me, I think I'll just do three things. You can tag them BBB if you want. The first thing I'll do is I'll start from the Bubbles YouTube channel, like the official Bubble YouTube channel. And I'm saying that because in recent times, Bubble has, made some really cool moves, when it comes to like education, getting one of the most respected Bubble creators out there, John Gregory, to create, content for the official, Bubble channel. It's like one of the best things Bubble has done this year. So I'll start from the official Bubble YouTube channel. You get a ton of, I mean, the playlist that was just released, or like that they've been releasing for some time, is almost the best thing for anyone to start, with right now on the internet. It will take you through it. If I was doing this again, it will take me through learning about what Bubble is, all of the different features the Bubble has to offer. And, this learning takes you through actually building, a very, very simple application. All of these, will just get you comfortable, with Bubble. And when you also look through other videos on the channel, you find some build videos, like you're building a to-do app or building like an AI app and, and general things like that. And then from there, I'll continue to other, YouTube channels. There are a ton of awesome creators out there, who are teaching, awesome level stuff on Bubble, from front end to back end to responsiveness to integrating with other applications. Starting like from YouTube, the Bubble official YouTube channel, and then other YouTube channels. And then the second thing I'll do is just get right into building. Sometimes a lot of people, fall into that trap of, just learn. If I were to start again, I'll get into building as soon as possible, because one thing I know now is that you truly never know everything about Bubble, right? But you get to a point where you become very comfortable with all of the features that Bubble has to offer. I don't think there's anyone that can learn every single thing that can be done on Bubble, because we're building different applications, different use cases. And so there sometimes is no need trying to learn about every single thing. Learn what you need to get a job completed, and the way you can do that is by just building. Today you're building, a personal portfolio. Tomorrow you're building a task management application. The next day you're building this thing. As you continue to build, you become more exposed to more bubble features, more creative ways, and you solidify your knowledge generally. And then the last thing I'll do is I'll jump into the community. I mean, I did that early on, and it's something I'll do again and again. The bubble community is one of the best communities that we have on the internet. You find really genuine, helpful people, who are just like willing to help. If you check the forum and you go to the need help, category of the forum, and yeah, I mean, you see like hundreds of questions, thousands of questions, and you see responses to, a good chunk of them. There are people, and I know some of them, I've met them. Even yesterday, I was talking to two awesome bubble legends that all they do is just spend time on the forum. And like, of course, they don't get paid for it. So whenever you're having a challenge, just jump onto the forum. So early on, I would get into the forum, ask questions, learn. And when you even dig the forum, you find some very, very, rare and gold kind of knowledge on bubble. Like there's some things that, you'll be struggling with. And because you don't have some background context as to how bubble works, you just like, be fighting with some things, like trying to make, a feature work. But then when you read some, some forum posts that were written in like 4 or 5 years ago, it just opens your mind. And, when you look at places like the forum, like Slack channels, I mean, the community is very, very helpful. So if I were to learn Bubble again, I'll start from the official Bubble YouTube channel, and then as soon as possible, I'll begin to build, and then I'll support all of my building, cap it up with getting into the community, learning from legends in the community. So yeah, that's what I'll do.
So I think summing up all of this, like I think so the best ways to start, like just build it, like come up with the idea, or like maybe I think cloning something, just
Yeah.
take that one thing and then kind of figure how to build that, and like in the journey, like every feature, every step in like that application, and then figure out thinking how you're gonna build it, and then find out resources. So like ask people, okay, if I would like, how would I build this feature? And then I think that's the best way. Like one by one, you would like kind of just ask, and then kind of within the 3 months, you would kind of then slowly find out. Because like what happens in learning is like you find something, you build something, then later like you're learning in a month or two, so you are then again focusing that or building it for some another thing, and then you kind of find out, okay, it could have been done like this way, and like instead of doing it in like 10 workflows, you could have done 1 or 2 workflows. And like there's so much like in the very basic details, like let's say something like just connection like toggle. Like I mean, it used to be there, like it came, I mean, they just needed like later, and then no one knew it, and then you're still like having to workflow for like show and hide, and you could just like there's just one button, like just toggle it. So yeah, I mean, like find it later, and yeah, I think that's the best way to learn and like build, and like add maybe build in public so that people know, and then like, yeah, start with the community first.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very correct. Very correct. Very correct.
Yeah. So yeah, so let's talk about like kind of founders, people who are not themselves going or building like learning bubble, but they would kind of found out like bubbles like something good you can like build for like maybe cheap, or like that's how like it's been sold. So like people found bubble with this kind of says messages where like this the tool that would help you say build your tool very fast and like kind of cheap. So but I think it's not exactly how like you're kind of selling it, like the way we are selling or promoting bubble is like a lot different, like in terms when you actually kind of start building or getting it out. So you like things those founders you would like share, like someone who's like thinking, okay, let me start with bubble, hire a developer. So at that point, what these founders should know, like before they are like hiring something and like, taking bubble, like, should they take it, should they not, why should they take it, and how like in that period, like where they have like an agency or developer working for them, building for them, at that point what things they should at that point know, so that they don't like they they kind of make a right decision around. Because what I've seen in the last few like months is like in India itself, like people starting to use book, and then what happens is like they hire someone straight out of college, and on the first day they kind of give this person say to work on Bubble. This person at the point didn't even knew that at the job like they're being hired for like working on Bubble. So after a week or something of joining, they kind of then get hand over Bubble, and then they have to start, and then they yeah
Sorry.
yeah. So like they don't do any kind of like research around it. They just just find like, okay, Bubble's a good, maybe a no to like you can build it fast, and they give, and that to like new people, like they hire freshers, and then after a few months, like when it's ready, they kind of go for testing, or like they start around with customers, and then they start kind of finding issue because this new person didn't know how to build, because like you really need to know like a lot of things like when you're building, like how it's gonna be like a good build, like, and it's very hard for any fresher to know. Like, I mean, if you're just given 1 month or 2 months, I mean, like yeah, it's very hard and challenging. So then what happens?
Yeah.
Like, how what happens is both the founders and the developer are kind of feeling like they made like a wrong choice going with Bubble. Like it's not, they shouldn't have gone with a no-code tool or Bubble. Instead, they should have, built it with code and like had people on code. But a lot of times here it's not about Bubble, but it's like how you kind of built on it, how you approached on it. So yeah, I mean, around that, what things you would kind of like add and like let people know.
Around founders, I think that every founder, who wants to build a bubble, should have done or should do a bit of research about it too, to best understand how it works, what the limitations, and how powerful it is. I think every founder, should do that. And I think that if they even have some time, they should go into building out like a very, very simple application, like understanding the basics of the product. I don't think that founders should just like Google one day, oh, what no-code tools are available, and then just hit Bubble, and then the next day they're going to look for a Bubble developer. I think that founders should be more careful, like cautious, with their business decisions. And I mean, picking a platform to build a product on is like one very critical business decision to make. So I think that like they should be more careful. And I also think that generally developers should be a bit cautious. And this is something that even Toby and I have spoken about at length. Should be careful around how they sell Bubble. I mean, it can be tempting sometimes, to sell Bubble as that all-in-one tool that can do this and that. And while that is true to some extent, some people go further, to sell Bubble as a cheap tool, or to sell Bubble development as a cheap endeavor. But whenever I hear that, I try to correct it, as fast as possible. That truly, one of the advantages of no code is that it is less expensive. I don't like to use the word cheap. I don't use the word cheap when I talk about Bubble. I only say it is less expensive than code. Meaning, if you spend, say, for example, $10, for example, for code, for Bubble, you should expect, or for no code generally, you should expect to spend a little bit less than that, but not cheap. So not that code is like a 10, and then no code, you're budgeting like $2 for that. No, that is cheap. So I try not to let people, when I speak to people, and they use words like, oh, Bubble is cheap, or Bubble, I mean no code developers, and they make passes that connotes them thinking of it as cheap. I try to correct them that no code generally is not cheap, but maybe less expensive. I think that developers should also do some work around upping their game. We have a bunch of people. I said it very carefully, very carefully. I wouldn't in any way want to generalize this, but I know people that would go on job platforms, on job boards, and like the entire selling point is about how cheap their services are. And maybe they're doing that in a way to get more clients and things like that, but it's really not good. And I mean, it just puts this entire stigma on the entire no-code community. It can be very annoying when you see things like that, but I hope they learn that the whole essence of no-code is not about how cheap it is, but it's about sometimes it's around the speed that that it affords, and all of the other beautiful things about no code. So I think I'll just stop there, just to let Toby also chime in, as I've shared quite a bit.
Yeah, I think
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, like adding on like Foluso's like yeah, I mean a lot of like agency founders I see like mostly with their social accounts kind of go around this and then repeatedly sharing like this the same thing like less expensive, less time, and I think yeah that's one of the things that makes founders kind of think okay, this person sharing this so it's you know gonna be cheaper like less expensive, but yeah it's not. Yeah, Toby.
Yeah, to add to what, which are very true, with the pricing perception that people have related to, no code generally. I think one other perception has to do with timing. People come into using bubble or no code thinking that projects should take, very short amount of time, different from code, which is true to a large extent, right? I mean, with code, you probably would use a year or so to build a project, but with no code, you use lesser time. But there's also that trap in thinking that projects should take a lot lesser time. This really depends on the nature of the project itself and also the experience of the developer, right? There's also the factor of how many developers are working on the project, which comes back to the complexity. So there are certain projects I've been part of that I started on working on it initially, and then they had to bring additional help at a certain point. And that was because the project was a lot larger than we anticipated, and they needed to be an extra developer at that point. So there's also ways that need to consider that projects may take a lot longer. Fine, you may have programmed or budgeted 2 months for a project, but sometimes we have cases of that project spilling over to 3 months, 4 months, because there are always unknown, dependencies, while building features that you thought you could easily build in a week, and it's taking a longer time, or maybe there's a bug somewhere that you don't know how to solve, and you have to. So personally, like when I'm working with clients, especially in my freelancing career, I will also always need to mention to them that we have 2 months to build this, but this may take longer, and just to make sure that they are okay with that, just before we start the project, because you always have to give room for things to go that way. But there's always a need to stick with the timeline, and follow it as much as possible. But there should always be that grace, working with founders to say that things may take a lot longer time. I think those are the two main things, like Felicia mentioned, with terms of costing and then timing. And then I think one other thing would be to understand the limitations of Bubble itself. Bubble is not code itself. It's not Python. It's not all those other stuff. So there's a limit to how much we can do with it. So founders need to understand, coming back to what Felicia mentioned before, with getting into Bubble themselves, doing some research. Bubble may be the most powerful no-code application right now, but it can't do everything. So there's always a need to understand what it can do, and if need be, step out of Bubble and use code for certain things. And Bubble allows developers to apply custom code into what they're building, or to use plugins, right? So there's always the opportunity to apply code as well. But I think oftentimes, sometimes when people want to build stuff, Bubble cannot actually do what they need it for, and it's okay for them to step out of that and use other tools or use code, to achieve that. I think that would just be what I would add to that.
Yeah, right. So yeah, let's talk about like how people what kind of like should find opportunities. Like where do you guys go for like finding clients, or like how would someone who needs to like find some good opportunities today? Where should they start, and like where should they go for like that?
Yeah, about finding opportunities. For me, my two-step rule, is would usually be around number one is being where your potential clients, and then two is around showcasing value, when you get to where they are. So first, around being where your clients are, first it starts with like thinking about what kind of opportunities you're looking for. There's so many opportunities when you think about how people can use Bubble, there are, founders that are just, looking for a developer, to join their team. There are companies that, fully corporate and, they're looking for actual Bubble developers to join the company full-time as employees, not as a contract or gig or things like that. And then, there are contracts and gigs, where people are just looking for someone to jump in for 2-3 months. So when you decide on what kind of role you're looking at, then begin to ask yourself the type of clients that would that would want to hire me, where would they be? If you're looking to get like a full-time job, in Bubble, for example, or you're looking to join an actual company that is building something serious on Bubble, maybe trying to raise funding or things like that, chances are that you'd find a couple of them on LinkedIn, because they are formal about their processes and things like that, about bringing up employees. So as a Bubble developer, you don't want to say, oh, let me just remain on Twitter, because Twitter is where the bans happen and things like that. You want to be on LinkedIn and to find that kind of job. And if you're looking for just normal roles, people just looking to get 2-3 months gigs and things like that, yeah, you get a couple of them on Twitter. When you check like freelancing platforms like Upwork, you also get a couple of them there. And other places would be like like community channels. I mean, like being in Bubble groups on Slack, on WhatsApp, whether they are global or local groups, you find a lot of jobs there. And then, you could also try looking at like vertical channels. So, you can imagine if you're looking for, if you're looking like to work with founders, for example, rather than just remaining on Bubble group chats, you could look out for founder communities that are for founders, and then join such communities. Chances are that you'd find someone saying, oh, they want to build a new product. When you're in a place where founders, I mean, that connection will be there. You can easily find jobs. And so when you are in all of these places, then the second thing would be about showcasing value, because it is not just about being on LinkedIn or being on Twitter. A lot of people on Twitter, but then if you're not showcasing your value, if you're not showcasing that you're a Bubble developer and things like that, then chances are that no one knows that you're there. And so you want to look for your own creative way. I don't think there is like a set formula for this. It's around finding your creative way to just let people know that you're a Bubble developer and like that you can build for them. In my early days, for me, it was just about tweeting about Bubble all day. So whenever I'm building something new, I mean, I'll just go, oh, I'm learning this today, I'm building this. Whenever I find a new feature that I didn't know about, oh, Bubble is exciting, I just found this feature. So I was, you can call it like, shit posting. I was just talking about Bubble all day. And, I got a couple of people, who reached out to me then, even when I wasn't qualified, to like pick up any jobs. I had two people that reached out to me, and I had to turn the jobs down. That, okay, thank you for reaching out, but I don't think I can, I can deliver on what you're asking me to. I can try to refer you to other people that I think, I'm more senior, I'm more senior level. So be where your clients should be, or be where potential clients should be, and then showcase value. Another way I did it was, then I used to just look for clones on Figma, of dashboards, of landing pages and things like that. And so I just look for these clones, I replicate them on Bubble, and then I post them on Twitter. And so that, help me build like a track record of always learning and, actively working on Bubble. And, ultimately, doing that on Twitter and LinkedIn, that was, I got clients, even agencies who reached out to me to come and join, like, their talent pool and things like that. So for me, be where your clients are and then showcase value when you're there.
To add to those very good points that Rishabh mentioned, I would just double down on the LinkedIn aspects. So something that I know that really works in terms of finding jobs on LinkedIn is by using the Boolean search, where you type in Bubble developer, and then we can use the filters to find posts, on LinkedIn, right, for people or companies looking for Bubble developers for different things. I think that's one very good way to actually find those jobs on LinkedIn. Another place that is underrated, but is also very useful for finding jobs, I would say, would be Facebook groups. There are a lot of Facebook groups on Facebook that people are constantly posting jobs, looking for a developer for XYZ. So sometimes they may have even posted those jobs on other forums, maybe on LinkedIn or on Slack or something. But Facebook is also a really good place to find jobs. I've seen some jobs from there, not personally, but just people posting those jobs, looking for developers to do different things for them. Also, we mentioned the Bubble Forum earlier. I think that's also a very good platform for finding opportunities, because there's a section in the Bubble Forum where you can just find, founders or agencies looking for developers for different things. And also Twitter as well. Twitter also has an advanced search where, you can use the time bubble developer or no code developer or something related to that to just find posts where people are looking for, developers in that area. Piggybacking on, what Felicia mentioned about being visible in, those spaces where potential clients, I would say that a very good way to go about doing that is, which what you mentioned before, which is building in public, right? You must always have something you are building and also showcasing it to, to basically say that I have the skills needed to do whatever you want, and this is me showcasing it on this platform. And that way you could even sort of build a personal brand whereby if somebody goes on any of those platforms we mentioned, maybe on Facebook or Twitter, and says, hey, I need, bubble developers for something, people who have seen your post talk about, how you can build those things, can actually mention you in the comments. They can refer you to that person to say, hey, this person is actually skilled and can do the job for you. And so everything ties back to just being visible, right? Going to those places and being visible, talking about, what you can do and showcasing it. That would be what I would just add to those points.
So yeah, very good points. And yeah, so now let's talk about, with AI coming into scene now. And I mean, a lot of things that we could say about no code is kind of, we see every day how like AI can do both these things, like being fast and being cheap. Like that's what we put on Bubble. And in that space, like I think AI is like really catching up. I mean, you could like, the coders can say like same can be done like fast and cheap, like using AI. So around that, how you guys like feeling and like working on it, and how do you see like Bubble for the next, coming a few years? Like someone should learn Bubble, and like if they should, in comparison with AI, like how would you compare it, and why should someone stay on Bubble and keep building on it, and how should they leverage more AI?
Toby, do you want to go first?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. So on the subject of AI, I think it's something happening right now, and I mean it's constantly evolving. I mean where AI was a year ago from now and where it is now today are two different things, and we would continue to see more advancements in that area, right? So in a way, some people are liable to seeing AI as a threat, to their jobs, and I think I would say developers generally because with the goal of AI is to take away the need to do a lot of work and to automate a lot of things, and free up time to do other things that we find interesting. And in terms of like seeing it as a threat, personally, I do not. I feel like AI is something that is there to enable us to move much faster than we currently or we previously used to do. So for example, coming up with an email copy for a newsletter, right? It used to be something I would struggle with before. And now, with AI, I can just basically write a prompt to explain what I'm trying to do. And then I would get, a very good example of what I need, which I can then use in my newsletter. So the same thing applies, when I'm working on a Bubble application, right? I would not say that with the advancement of AI, introduction of AI, people should stop learning Bubble. I think that yes, in the next few years, possibly AI may get so good that we would not need a platform like Bubble anymore. You could possibly just write a prompt for the kind of application you want to build, and then, AI just develops what you need, the screens, and then, it's really functional, right? I mean, even with the recently concluded Figma event, the annual, I think it's Config or something, they actually announced using AI in the application itself, to make things a lot faster. So I would not say that people should be discouraged from learning Bubble. I would say they should even learn Bubble even more now, being that, but, AI is able to allow you to do things in a much more faster way. So I could probably want to set up an integration with, let's say, SendGrid or Stripe, right? And I may be facing a challenge with how to set up something, maybe like a webhook. I can simply go into ChatGPT and explain what I'm trying to do. And then it gives me like instructions about how to do it, which I can follow, with the documentation, and that would get me, something that I was looking for, like the outcome that I was looking for. So I would say that it's a good way to complement your tasks, whatever you're trying to do. But, there is always that mindset to go with the times, right? So I feel like because of how AI may be advancing, certain careers may not exist in the next few years. And so it's important to transition to careers where, or careers that will still be relevant in the next few years as AI gets advanced. But right now in this time, I would say people should not stop learning or doing what they're doing. Even if, in fact, when it comes to coding itself, right? AI is pretty good to a good extent right now in being able to write code, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and Python, and a bunch of other things that people, actual traditional developers may need, code with, right? So it's just a way to complement what you already do. So it even goes beyond development, goes into like running a startup, coming up with marketing ideas, talking to users. AI would enable all of that to be seamless, right? But one just has to have the understanding that, hey, this may shift drastically in the next few years, and one has to be prepared for that. But right now, I'd say one, should keep learning Bubble, keep learning how to code, but use AI as a way to enable your work to get done faster.
So have you do you learn code? Like, do you see yourself finding yourself like learning coding along with it, like along with Bubble, or you just like stay mostly?
Well, I would say I'm actually at a point where I'm learning to code. Earlier on where I mentioned, where I've been doing some learning. So I've been learning some JavaScript, because there's been a long-term goal to do that. And I've found that using AI, ChatGPT to say, this is what I'm trying to do. Can you write the code that would enable to me to do this? Or can you explain this code? And it's able to do that in a way as if, I was sitting with someone and then, the person was explaining it to me. So it's really helpful in terms of just learning to code. And then also, even while using Bubble, I can also use it to try to understand how to solve certain problems. Although AI is not programmed to work with no code applications, that's like custom knowledge. You have to fine tune it, you have to train it. But I think with Bubble, it just has a general idea of how things should work. And, that is enough to do what I need to do.
So yeah, like Bubble itself just launched like AI within itself, and like they're working on it. I mean, how did you find it? Like, you use the new page creation thing. I think it's currently a bit template based. I think returning like theme values.
Let Foluso talk about that.
Can you repeat?
Yeah, I did. Before I talk about, how I'm feeling about Bubble's integration of AI, I think my stance on AI right now is that AI is great. It's very, very great. I mean, it enables us to, get a lot, of things more done, faster, and it just helps us, go faster, and some of the things that we would have struggled with in all of these ways. AI is really helping us move us faster. But then one thing I've seen about how AI has been implemented and integrated, and generally in the use case of AI, is that AI is hardly doing the hard work yet. And so that, still leaves us, with some more time. And I'll explain what I mean. I'll explain what I mean by AI not doing the hard work yet. When you look at, a lot of the applications of AI, no, let me say, the way people are integrating AI, companies and products are integrating AI, and you see that for most of them, the general way is just having like an AI chatbot, or just having a way to generate text, or just having a way to generate images. All of these are like the very, very, very basic things, and all of these integrations, I reckon, will not drastically change our lives. Like, I don't know if you get it. Like, all of these things will not, we're no longer surprised by AI generating a storyline. Like, everyone knows AI can do that. Like, let's get past that, right? But then you find a few companies that are taking, AI and are implementing it in very, very thoughtful ways, and ways that would actually cause impacts, like on our lives. One of my favorite companies, that I'm watching the integration of AI is the Arc browser. Arc browser, for a while AI was jumping around, people integrating chatbots, they were pretty silent about it. But then when they came up with their AI features, they were, they are quite helpful, and very, most especially the way they integrated it into their new mobile app called AskSearch. The major selling point, of AskSearch is helping you find what you want faster. I mean, right now, if you go to Google and you're like just looking for, an information on how to do something, chances are that, you click on the first link, scroll through pages, you see ads here and there, and then, maybe you don't find it on the first page, and then you go back, look through a couple of pages before you can come up with comprehensive information and all of that. But then with applications like AskSearch, Arc, is implementing it to do all of that searching work for you. And so something that would have taken you like, 15, 20 minutes, to find something, with AskSearch, in a couple of seconds, they're providing you well thought out and well researched, findings from all around the internet. Now that is, an interesting and very helpful use, of AI. And, even like Toby mentioned, the way Figma is implementing AI, yes, they have the general use case of, oh, I want to generate a new design, with AI. But more than that, you see really interesting, thoughtful features like renaming all of your layers. Like 7 of 10 designers I know do not name their layers properly. But then you always hear them talking about how it's good to name your layers and things like that. But then with AI, Figma, would help you rename all of your layers. And when you're working with, like, when you are a designer in an organization, and your application, you have like so many different versions and things like that, sometimes it can get difficult, to find, something like to find a previous version and things like that. But then with Figma AI, if you have a screenshot of it, you place it on, the Figma canvas, and the AI can look through all of your backlog to find that is an interesting, and that's quite an helpful use of AI. So I think if all companies were integrating AI like this, then I think, would have been more scared. But most people are just building out chatbots and things like that. And so I wouldn't think, or I don't think, most people should be scared, jumping about because AI is going to take over the world. I don't think that would happen in a long time, right? And then, when I think about AI coming together, how AI has come together with Bubble. I mean, I watched, the Bubble event, where they demoed the AI feature, and personally, how they go at, using the AI feature to generate, a couple of pages and just like see how it comes. I mean, that's like an interesting use case of how AI and Bubble can come together. But again, when you look at it, that is very, very, very tiny, and like that wouldn't, shake anyone. The most thing you can do now is just generate a page. Of course, Bubble says, they're working on more features that would allow you to be able to generate, like full applications, generating the front end, the workflows and databases and things like that. When they do that, yeah, that would be, a little bit more interesting. But then I don't think anyone can completely rely on that, because AI can never fully have the true context of real life like we do. And that's what makes us ultimately better than AI, right? Because we have more context. When we're developing an application, even when you've been given a brief and you're building on Bubble, even if there's something not written, because of your knowledge of humans and the way the society works, you can say, oh, this particular thing was not written, but I know that it's going to be useful. And so you can go ahead to add it, like changes like that. AI cannot fully all of this context. And so even when Bubble complete like their AI build and everything. I don't think anyone should say, oh, let me not learn Bubble. Let me just wait for their AI feature so that I can just type, because a lot of us, really suck at prompting. Prompting, is what helps AI do its best job. But then we are not very good at prompting. And so, it's a kind of chicken and egg problem that, we may not be able to truly solve. So I think everyone should keep on learning Bubble, if you want to build web applications. I think you should keep on learning Bubble or any other no-code tools out there. Don't ignore AI. I think, we can leverage AI to do very, very interesting things, like the way Arc is doing it, like the way Figma is doing it. And, even some other people in the ecosystem. I remember now that, Christopher, some web developer from Ghana, recently, launched a product called Dev.bot. And, it's like an AI tool that, helps you clone your voice and things like that. Very, very interesting case of AI. It brought Bubble and it brought the power of Bubble and AI together. And he has an awesome application. I've been watching his progress, and he's doing something very, very amazing. Even, my friend, his name is Tom from Poland. He, in a weekend, he built, a very interesting AI tool on Bubble, that allows you to that allows you to better, improve your resume for a job application. So this tool, would ask you to submit a job application. You can get the link from the job anywhere. You paste it into the application, and then you submit your resume that you've prepared. And so AI goes through the job application, the requirements, the responsibilities, and then looks through your resume, and then it's able to let you know, okay, if you want, to stand a better chance at getting this job, you need to make such and such changes to your resume. That's a very interesting and useful case of AI. I think it will take a long time before we can get to a point where Bubble can, where you can type a prompt into Bubble and it can create an application like that. And when you look at other applications in the ecosystem, these are not things that you can just build in a day. I mean, I'm not underestimating the power of AI. AI is very powerful, but then I don't think that we should be scared of, of AI, or we should take a lazy approach and then not learn how Bubble works, thinking that AI is taking over. I think we shouldn't do that.
Right. So yeah, let's wrap it up and kind of so let's talk about some like closing thoughts. Like what are your things like you would ended up and like add to everything like we have talked so far?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I would say that in terms of people who are just coming in touch or in contact with Bubble for the first time, I would say it's not too late to get started. People are still signing up, Bubble, and they're, finding it really useful. So even though the tool has been around for maybe more than a decade now, it's not too late to get started and start learning. So whatever your goal may be, whether it is to build your own application as a founder or to, have a career as a Bubble developer or anything else, Bubble is a really good platform to learn. And also I would add that it's also important to spread your tentacles beyond Bubble. Bubble is an amazing platform, yes, but there are also other no-code tools that do some other things better. So for example, if you are trying to build a mobile application right now, Bubble may not be the best one for that until maybe in the future when they release, features that allow you to build native applications on their platform. But there are other tools best suited for that. There are tools for automation like Zapier and Make, so the ecosystem is pretty large. And so it's also good to learn other tools aside from Bubble, just to be able to do a lot more. And also, I would say that, we're excited and looking forward to Bubble's, native mobile application features. I think the most anticipated thing right now, and pretty excited for, when they eventually release it, hopefully this year. So yeah, I would say those are my closing. And it's been a fantastic, opportunity to be on this podcast and, share all of this. And thank you very much for, having me on.
Thank you for coming on this and sharing all this knowledge. Thank you, Toby. Also,
Yeah, for For my closing thoughts, if to new listeners who have not tried out bubble or who are not very knowledgeable yet on bubble, I think you should give it a try. I think you find it interesting, and like me, you probably fall in love with it, and then you keep telling everyone about it. I think bubble is a fantastic and powerful tool that has like a lot of power. And when you look at our space, our country, and our continent generally, Nigeria and Africa, you see that there are a lot of opportunities for software applications that can genuinely help people. Earlier I spoke about AI not being able to do the hard things yet, or AI not doing the hard things yet. There are a lot of businesses, like local and small business in Nigeria, that would really need, a product or an application to make their operations much more efficient or faster. But the thing is, our friends and our brothers, who write code will continue to charge much, much expensive amounts. But we're not going cheap, but generally, as a no-code developer, it's possible that some of these businesses may be able to patronize the services. And so I think that more people should try out Bubble and build things on Bubble. And for those who are Bubble developers already, I think you should just keep going all in, into Bubble. Much more than ever before this year, I've especially watched, the Bubble team, and even being in a part of the first cohort of Bubble ambassadors, and having direct access to the team, I can see and I've seen how much more dedicated the Bubble team is to ensuring that Bubble works out for all of us. And so if there is a time to like go full into Bubble, if there's a time to upskill better, if there's a time to do crazy things to Bubble, I think that now is the time. And like Toby said, I think the whole world is really waiting for Bubble's native mobile feature. I think like that has been the missing piece for declaring Bubble the actual no-code champion. They've been, but there've been some battles. But I think when they dropped that, that was cement Bubble as the most powerful no-code engine. So I think present Bubble developers should go all in, learn Bubble. If you need to pick up other tools with it, do so. I mean, no code generally is not just one tool. There's so many other tools there, and just keep taking care of yourself. I think that's very important, to say. But yeah, so thank you very much also for having me come around about Bubble like I always do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Foluso. So yeah, thank you guys for coming here, joining, and being so wonderful in like sharing everything that you knew. And yeah, I hope people, every person who's gonna listen to this, kind of finds some good knowledge and information from this podcast, from this series. And thank you for joining.
Thank you.